The results are in. Hear about the top stories of 2022.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that the members of the Kingsport Times News brought our readers the defining stories of 2022, and online readers selected the top 5 stories. So, beyond those, there are a couple of stories that struck me. I think one of the things that was really important in the year just ended was the housing boom in Kingsport. That's a big story. There's been lots of development and lots of building going on, and that'll continue, I think, in 2023. There are other stories that I think might have been overlooked. You might recall that there was a mother in Hawkins County who filed a $2.5 million lawsuit against the Board of Education. Think about that story. I think about how the model city is moving closer to having a 4-year dental school here. The City of Kingsport has worked with Ballard Health to make that happen, and so that's going to be a reality. That's going to be a big story. The Times News teamed up with its sister paper, Bristol Now, in 2022, and we put together a 6-story package that took a look at lost and stolen firearms in the in 4 counties across the 2 states, across Southwest Virginia and Northeast Tennessee. And we use the power of public records requests to dislodge information that might not ever see the light of day. Our joint investigation found that there were 384 firearms stolen over a 12-month period, but only 16%, or 63 firearms, were returned to the hands of their owners. Law enforcement told us that this was very troubling to them, troubling trend. That's the kind of reporting that you're not going to find anywhere else. That's unique content to the Times News. Another thing that was a big story that the Times News broke, that in October, Tessa Worley wrote about how BAE Systems employees might not have followed safety protocols, and that led to the January 3rd, 2019 explosion at the Holston Army Ammunitions Plant. That's a big story, and the Times News is actively continues to push the Army for additional information about what happened, and so we can learn more about the lessons learned from that explosion. That's important to the people who live around the plant. There are other big stories, the dome repair at Dobbin Bennett's. Let's not forget that. And then, just over the last few weeks, we had an interesting story about the band teacher who stabbed himself and made a false police report. So that was, some of the other stories that happened in 2022.
I think it resonated for many reasons. Mostly, I think this is Virginia's first casino. So this is a very big deal for Virginians and people out that way a little bit, but it affects us all. And this is the closest casino, I think, within maybe a 200-mile radius, at least for Hard Rock properties. So this is a big deal for Tennesseans and Virginians alike, and I think it just got a lot of attention for what it is and what a big project it's going to be. So it was exciting. It was something that we had all been looking forward to. This whole newsroom had been looking forward to for a while. We knew it was coming, and it was a full day. It was exciting. I got there early, and it was just fun to see, I think, the mall transform a little bit, because all of us have grown up either seeing the mall or going to the mall if you're out in Bristol, and I had my own memories there, and it was just really exciting to see this important piece of Bristol turn into something that's still going to be important. And I love that they kept the tiles from the kids back in the 90s that decorated these tiles that are near the bathroom that they're going to keep actually in the casino. So it was exciting seeing things like that, and it was just fun to see how it's changed and what's coming too. And maybe the most exciting part of this story was that it's just the beginning, and it's not even totally the beginning in a way. It's almost like a precursor, because we haven't even had the opening of, the actual final project. It's not completed yet. That'll be completed in the spring or summer of 2024. So it's just getting started, and I know it's going to have its impacts, good and bad, on the area, the region. And so it was exciting thinking of all those things and seeing it come together, because I'd been focusing so much on when it's going to come together and what it looks like, and chasing down different bits of information. So to see it kind of come together was really special.
I think the story about the Santa Train resonated with readers because it's such an important thing to this community. The Santa Train has been an 80-year tradition that people are going because mama took me, her mama took her, her mama took her. It's been passed, it's just a tradition that's been passed down and passed down. So having it come back after not having it for 2 years was really impactful for a lot of people. I remember talking to people on the track, having one person tell me it's not Christmas without the Santa Train, and that's the best way to explain it for a lot of people in the Appalachian Highlands. It's not Christmas without the Santa Train, so that's why it resonated, because having it back was like having their sense of normalcy come back around the holiday season. It was very interesting coming to this store, because I moved here from Alabama in January, and I didn't know what the Santa Train was until I got here. But I got a signed cover and I learned what the Santa Train was, and we don't have something like that where I'm from, like a train that drives. So it was so learning about it. It was very interesting to cover it, because I got to learn the traditions from the people I saw. Well, when I stopped at tracks, I'd talk to people. We made stops. I'd ask them about why this was important, why they came, and I kept hearing, because it's what we've always done. Learning how much work it takes to put this train on. They did what normally takes 9 months, they did it in like 90 days, which was really, really surprising. But just to be able to experience something that's such an important to this community that I didn't really know much about, it was just something special that I got to do, so I really enjoyed it.
The Dobyns-Bennett Boys Basketball State Championship resonated with readers this year because it was the first time that DB had won a state basketball championship in 77 years. This is also the first time that Dobyns-Bennett have won a state championship in any of the three major ball sports, football, basketball, baseball, since 1964. And at the time, Dobyns-Bennett was still in the old John Sevier building. So this was technically their first state championship in the new Dobyns-Bennett building, which was built in 1967. So the building is almost 60 years old now. And of course, all the heartbreak of, the teams in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and then through the 90s, that had, come so close and just come up short. And to do it in the way that they did was just amazing. For a lot of people, I think it was a lot of closure, a piece of the puzzle that had been missing. It was just something that was really meant a lot to people, not only in Kingsport, but also in the greater Tri-Cities area. Covering the story in real time was, it's kind of drawn out over a few days here. The first day, the first game they were down at the half to Coffee County, and then they came back in the second half and played pretty well. And then they faced Bartlett, who was a team out of Memphis, and they were a super team pretty much. They hadn't lost to an in-state opponent all year. They'd only lost a few games to, nationally ranked teams. And for DB to beat them at the buzzer in overtime was just unbelievable. Malachi Hale's shot in the lane as the horn sounded was just probably the best moment in Dobyns-Bennett basketball history other than up to that point. It was totally unexpected. And for them to get to the state championship game, at least I thought was just icing on the cake. And of course, beating Bearden in overtime, that was an experience all in itself. What's kind of funny is the game tying shot at the end of regulation, the kid for Bearden that hit it was literally right in front of me. I could have reached out and touched him almost. And I knew as soon as that shot, kind of rainbowed, I was saying, oh no, it's going in. And I could see a lot of people, in the stands saying, oh no, it's going in. And you kind of heard this, all the way back to Kingsport of, here we go again. But thankfully, DB probably had one of the most memorable overtime periods in the history of the school. We're winning by 9 points. And Jack Browder, of course, with the amazing overtime. Just terrific resilience by DB. But kind of getting into the backstory a little bit here of the first day. Good friend of mine, Bill Lane, was a longtime sports writer here at the Times News for 50 years, from 1962 until 2012 when he retired. He covered thousands of Dobbins Bennett basketball games through the years, and he passed away the night before Dobbins Bennett started the state tournament. And he always loved to keep up with them. Basketball for DB was one of his favorite things to cover through 50 years. And I had to sit in the stands and, communicate back and forth with Doug, Jeff, and Joe and Kevin, about, writing an obit for Bill to put on the front page of the paper the next day. And this was a couple hours before DB was supposed to tip off. So I wrote part of Bill's obit in the paper, and I talked with his widow in the hallway of the Murphy Center, and I was crying my eyes out. I had gotten real close with Bill Lane over the previous 3 years, and he never got to see DB win. It was kind of funny because sometimes you have to have some luck and maybe a little bit of help from above to win a state championship, and nobody will ever know, but maybe Bill was helping him out that week. And it was just a very emotional week for me. I got to spend a lot of it with my dad too, so that was pretty fun. Yeah, that first day was a little swing, especially with DB being down at the Havas. I was thinking, oh no, they're going to be one and done again, but thankfully they came back and won. But it was the experience of covering it, all the stuff in real time, was just something I'll never forget, and something that I really think deserves to be part of a book. Maybe it'll be a book about my career, I don't know, but that would be pretty much an entire chapter, is that 3-4 day stretch there at the state tournament. It was truly something special, and something I'll probably tell my grandkids about.
Going forward, we're going to continue with our local journalism. That's at the heart of everything we do. For example, the Times News is working on its first ebook. It'll be a book about the famous outlaw Kenny Wagner. We will continue to track all things about the methamphetamine and fentanyl crisis, and about possible solutions to that and the rehab center, and how baby doe settlement money is spent to help with all these problems. At the same time, reporters have been spending the last several months working on a series of stories about mental health, and later this year we will publish a multi-day special report, a sweeping report that looks at all the angles about that. So some of the things that we have coming up. Finally, I just want to thank everybody from, with unmeasurable thanks for reading the Times News. Your subscription helps us do what we do and provide you the kind of journalism that you can't find anywhere else.